caught to the trap. Right. Well, welcome here. It's good to see Joe's coming along, and as well. Hello, Joe. Joe is also in from Aotearoa, New Zealand. She is one of my colleagues and a good friend. So last, I'll set the scene for you. Last Eastern Town Hall in the English room, now Angela and I and Dylan, who isn't here, but hopefully you'll join us later on, we're just discussing a whole lot of things to do with impact and climate. So climate-related activities on Cardano.
Sorry, Robert. Sorry to interrupt, Robert. Utah, is the Japanese room open already? All good, Utah? I think they're coming. All right, I'm going to Japanese then. Today I'm listening to Japanese.
Okay, yeah, the Japanese room is open and everyone's going in.
Yeah,
cool.
Thank you.
Okay, that's cool.
Sorry about that.
And we're just staying in the main room for the English. That's all. Okay, so we were just discussing in the Eastern Town Hall various different climate-based and impact-related issues and just activity within Cardano. Dylan himself is working on algae farming, basically, to produce capture carbon and produce all sorts of products, and he's doing that in Australia. And Angela is looking at things like how to do better smart farming in the coffee environment in Kenya. Joe and I have been working in the impact space and social enterprise space for quite a number of years. And so what we said, well, we would have orientated discussion this time around for the Eastern Town Hall around the idea of systems capital. And this was basically based on a paper that came out. Tian, you got your hand up. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Robert. One participant asked me she cannot see Japanese breakout room. Not sure what happened. From my view, I haven't seen breakout room, Japanese breakout room.
You can't see it. I can see it. There is a Japanese breakout room there.
I cannot.
Who's trying to go in? You can't. Do you want to go into it?
Yeah. What is his or her name? I'll help him. Her.
I haven't seen her here. Maybe her join already.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for interrupt.
That's all right. No problem at all.
Yeah.
No problem at all. So yeah, we were just discussing around impact related now, just to define what impact is trying to do positive system change. So things are going in one direction and we need to change it. We believe we need to change it to another, to some notion of good. Now, that's the first requirement, is what is good? What do we mean by good? Pretty difficult thing to actually define, because everyone will have different opinions of things. So anyway, we thought we'd try and orientate a little bit of the discussion around a paper that came out about 4 weeks ago. Was that right, Joe? About 4 weeks ago? Yeah. Called Design Foundations for System Capital. And I'll send you the link to the blog post. This came out of Griffin University, which is an Australian company, university in Brisbane, Australia. And Dylan also had something to do with that. He's part of Griffin University, as far as I know. So anyway, I'll just send the link into the meeting, everyone. This is the blog post associated with it, but there's also actually a PDF that's in there, and I'll find the PDF in a sec. And we thought we'd just have a little bit of discussion around what system capital is, and also how particularly Cardano could be used in that context, in the context of systems capital. Okay, because there are actually some unique properties of Cardano that would actually benefit from that greatly. And since then, or system capital would benefit from greatly. And also there's obviously a lot of Cardano for climate and impact related proposals generally in Fund 9 and a growing community in that area. One of the downsides of the climate community at the moment is that all of that's kind of in the Northern Hemisphere time zone, and it's a bit tricky for us and the Antipodeans of New Zealand and Australia and Indonesia and stuff to hook into the Northern Hemisphere's time zones. So one of the things that we would like to be able to do is actually try and build out a bit of a community with an impact focus in the Eastern Town Hall. And indeed, that's really kind of partly what we are doing within the Eastern Town Hall context anyway. And Dylan, I think, was interested in setting that up as an adjunct to the Eastern Town Hall, or as part of one of the rooms that we do, which is focused just on that. So we just thought we'd have a little bit of a go talking about what system capital is, using this design exploration as a starting point, and just see where the discussion goes from there in this room. For the moment, if we run out of ideas or discussions around this, we could switch to something else, but that was just the sort of starting provocation, so to speak, to actually get us thinking about this. And what, first of all, what the heck is systems capital? What is impact finance? What is impact? What is Cardano for climate? All those sort of things. And just get that discussion going. So the floor. Who would like it to start? I can, but I've already said enough. So I want to put the floor open to someone else. If I'll pose the question, what is, and since you've just been introduced to this design document, what the heck is systems capital? Do you want to have a go, Joe, and try and answer that?
I knew you were going to pick on me.
Yes, I know. Well, I can ask Angela, do you want to have a go and answer that? One of you. What is systems capital?
It's shall I if I share the screen, it's probably a can you see that?
Yep.
Cool. So this is from that design foundations document from Griffith University, and it's a great visual of systems capital. I'll come back to it, but I think this is it's good to compare. So this is what happens currently, right? So you know, the drivers of most investors in any venture is their interests, you know, and getting a return. And it works like a funnel, like the picture says, right? And basically the value comes out of the bottom of the funnel and gets directed to the investors. Obviously good stuff happens along the way, and you know, companies are formed and hopefully they are good for the planet. More often than not, they have lots of negative externalities that don't get figured at all. They're not accounted for anywhere, which means that we end up with the Moloch type situation where things that are in the commons, like our climate and the health of our climate, the health of our planet, they suffer even kind of without any thought to it, you know, thought to that that suffering that happens environmentally. And then of course there are the social consequences as well, because profit is the driver. The negative externalities are not counted at all. You know, there is a drive to either remove humans, or drive, you know, payments, salaries down as far as possible, take as many clips of the ticket along the way as much as possible, all in the aim of, you know, ending up with a investment return. So that, I mean, there's a lot of information on that slide, but that's the basic pattern, right? It's a funnel. Systems capital takes a very different approach. It thinks about those externalities and counting them in for a start, making sure that, you know, there is a reckoning at least of the negative externalities. But on the other side, also, what are the positive externalities that can be created? Are people happy doing what they're doing? Are they healthy? Are they happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise as part of taking part in the, you know, the generation of the product or the service that the business or the enterprise is generating? And is there an environmental positive externality as well? Are all the negatives included, and are all the positives included? So that's the individual enterprises themselves. But then each enterprise doesn't live in a vacuum. It's connected to a whole value chain of other enterprises. So systems capital approach is looking at all of the parts of the system, thinking about the, you know, net negative and net positive of the whole system, rather than just the individual pieces. So is there a you know, a positive outcome as well as a positive financial return on investment, which kind of speaks to the Cardano return on intention, which we've all heard, and, you know, is part of the mission of Cardano. Is that enough to start with as a good description with those two diagrams?
Yeah, one of the things I would add to that is that the funnel-based approach, one of the key things about that is there's a point-wise focus. So you're just investing in a single thing. The idea of system capital, which is more holistic, is the idea that you're investing in lots of different things that together form the system and integrate with them. So in some respects, you can look at it from the point of view of how Catalyst operates at the moment with the challenges, all the different challenges coming through. And we might be putting proposals in multiple challenges to help with a bigger picture of what's actually going on. And so we can invest more holistically when we do the proposals and stuff. So that's one way of looking at what systems capital is. It's still an investment approach. I'll make that quite clear. But instead of investing on just a simple, you know, just in this for a return on investment, I'm now thinking, what do I need to invest in to build the ecosystem? Okay, so that's very much like what Catalyst itself is actually trying to do. What do we need to actually invest in via grants, which is effectively funding proposals, to try and build out the Cardano ecosystem? And then within the context of what we're talking about here, of climate and social change, what we need to invest in to bring about that change. Different things that we need to invest in, not just one vertical. That's why one way of looking at it. Angela, here. Any thoughts? Any comments or ideas or viewpoints from where you sit about what's needed, the problems that you see within Kenya or DRC or Uganda or any of that sort of area?
It's a very interesting question. The funnel approach is seen quite, it's seen in a bigger way when I would relate it to sort of the population graph. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, where a healthy population has many young people and fewer and fewer and fewer old people. And then the work of the collective or average system with the younger people who are, you know, the muscle, kind of putting in general work in a country or a system, supports the people who are a bit older. What happens when that is a very, 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 you know, there's very few old people and very many young people, is that the funnel just doesn't work as well. It's also the same with the opposite, where there's not enough youth and children and just general population to support the large amount. So I'm thinking about it more from a population growth perspective, and how with the shifting population, we're just about to reach 8 billion people. And while, for example, in India, it's very balanced, in China, it's sort of doing and in Africa, it's sort of, so I think it's fascinating the way that the funnel either works for or works against a population or a collective. And in a system like Catalyst, I wonder what sort of shape we would be looking at. Not that it has anything to do with age, but just a thought. Would anyone like to contribute, or does anyone else have something to say about the funnel?
Any thoughts? Anyone else want to throw in a little comment, or don't even understand it, or how does this relate to blockchains or anything else like that? Whatever you want to throw in there. More than happy to hear your opinions or your thoughts on things. Anyone?
So question, Angela. Hello, how are you? Nice.
I'm good. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm good. It's nice to see you. It's been a while. So question for you in Kenya. So a very large young population, right? Is what you're saying. Yeah. So what does that mean for Kenya in terms of capability? You know, like we have the opposite problem in New Zealand. You know, we're getting a larger and larger older population. With the funnel is the other way around. So we've got lots of people with lots of wisdom who also expect, you know, larger salaries and, you know, all the rest of it. And we have very little muscle. Well, not very little, but less muscle. So yeah, I'm interested. What does that mean for capabilities in Kenya?
Well, we have a mean population. Let me talk about the whole of Africa. We are, I think, 1.3 billion people at the moment, and the mean age is 17 and a half. Wow. So that's pretty crazy. Yeah. I'm not necessarily talking about East Africa. It's a bit higher, but still below 21. And so we have a problem with our systems where the systems that worked for previous generations don't necessarily work for the current population. And so it's very, very difficult for young people to find quality amount of training so that they can rise, because the general quality of education is quite poor. Even though we have worked very hard on it, it's still not quite there. And so we have danger in that there's just a huge booming, very, very, very young population. So that can be scary in terms of when you have a lot of young jobless people, well, it gets closer and closer and closer. On the other hand, it's a huge amount of potential. And so if we were able to raise the quality of education and the quality of experience and have a system where the older, wiser people were able to support the number of youth, that could be something really powerful that could happen there in terms of systems. We've recently changed the school system 3 years ago. And so there's a huge amount of hope with that, but there's sort of 40 years of people who've been through a pretty terrible school system, to be very blunt. And so it's an interesting knife edge to walk on.
Yeah.
Because too many young jobless people or just people hanging around, the slightest thing goes off and
it flares up into a a situation that you don't want, right? Yeah. So the system is unbalanced, essentially, is what you're saying. It's just not, there isn't enough
leadership is a strange way to put it, but yeah, guidance.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I've been reflecting on in the systems capital approach, you know, it is the coordination problem. Right? And the ability to self-organize into groups. Yeah, so in a system like in New Zealand, we're, you know, very fortunate and privileged that we're, you know, a lot less people, a lot, you know, very, very close together, really strong links. It's actually quite easy to start coordinating and to get a group of people together to decide to do something together, you know. And yeah, there's, you know, it's pretty straightforward to do that, and we have the room to do that, and we have the you know, the benefit of the time and the technology to do that. Is there the same ability for young people to self-organize? You know, do they have the time? Do they have the access to the tools to self-organize into groups? Maybe without that older leadership, you know?
It's not, well, the thing about it being sort of 17 is they're still not done with high school.
Right, so maturity level is, yeah.
So there's still a large amount of billion people are, you know, children. So there's a huge amount of hope that, and I'm not saying it always has to be one way, but what we've seen, for example, with the election that's just gone on in the last month, is there was, contrary to previous elections, quite a decision for peace, and quite a way that people self-organized and said, whichever leader gets chosen, if I ride a motorbike, I still have to ride a motorbike tomorrow. And so that's been a huge amount of growth. And I'm glossing over a whole story there. But we've seen in the past month or so, a real push for peace, because previously we've seen complete chaos erupt that kills many and also shuts down the economy for quite a while around something like an election. And so there's been a lot of self-organization and a collective turn towards peace, which has been very calming to watch. And there's been an interesting, I've personally had a journey with finding hope in my personal collective. But we have both Andreas and Andy from Indonesia. What's it like in Indonesia? or Germany. Are you guys there?
Andy,
Maybe
are you
not.
there? Andy or Andreas, are you there? Any thoughts in terms of reflecting on issues and stuff in Indonesia?
Well, so
Or
far from me, from Indonesia, I think we have our own different, of course, different situation from what Angela have in Africa, right? I mean, in terms of in the data, like Angela said, the mean is like a 17.5 years old. I don't really have the data on that, but in terms of like unemployment and everything else like that, working on after the pandemic like this, we do have some problems as well. Looking, people are quite hard to get a new job, and then also there's this thing happening with all the prices goes up and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, different kind of problem that we have here. But I'm not really the right person to talk about that because I don't really have the data on that. So yeah, sorry for that.
What do you see in your own group, Andy? Like, is there a is it easy to self-organize?
Yeah, it's quite easy to self-organize. I mean, so far it's like only whether you are in the city or you're in the out of the city and far from the city, in terms of that you have the infrastructure, you have the technology and everything. If you're in the city, then it's quite easy for you to get everything right. I mean, like electricity. Electricity is still also a problem with us in here in Indonesia, especially if you're far from the city. Electricity itself is still a challenge. And then, of course, after that, then you got like, for example, like here we are connected all over the world, Africa, Germany, New Zealand, Indonesia. It's quite easy with the internet, right? But yeah, since that people in the villages, they still have some problem with electricity, and that accumulates as well on the access to the internet as well. So if you're saying that if we are quite easy to organize ourselves, it's actually quite easy. But yeah, for those people in the villages, then they can only reach out to their community, but not outside. So yeah, I think that's what we have here. While the one in the cities, like me in Jakarta, or yeah, the bigger cities, I think those kind of problem is not appear there. So it's quite yeah, advantage for us in the cities to have these meetings as well. It's quite easy to organize.
One of the things I think, how many islands are there in Indonesia? This is one of the things you got to, you know, every country has some unique challenges because of their geography and stuff like that. So how many islands are there in Indonesia?
Right. So about the islands as well, we have actually a different data, but what I've heard, the last one is like we are having like around 9,000 islands all over Indonesia.
And each of those have different access, different both physical access in terms of transportation networks, as well as communication networks as well, different, and power grids and stuff like that, don't they? They all have different combinations of things. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
How's it going with the new Chinese train? Is it ready?
Chinese train, where is it?
China was building a huge train that would cross quite a few islands in Indonesia.
Not really. There's nothing like that right now. What the train networks that are building, what it has been built is actually only in Java Island. It's one of the 5 biggest island in Indonesia, And other than that, we are actually building more of toll roads instead of railways. So yeah, in the past like 5 or 10 years, the toll roads are given more priorities there. So the president right now is working on also the let's say sea toll roads, so connecting its islands with the on the seas with the vessels and everything. So to make sure that all the goods are running around all yeah all over Indonesia instead of just running around on the bigger islands. So that's what we are having right now, Angela.
Yeah, so in terms of that, because I think there's what's the size of Indonesia? It's 270 million, isn't it?
Something like that. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and something like about 70% of it is in what would be sort of poverty kind of situation. Is that right? It was some, living on a really small amount of money. What requirements? It's quite high, isn't it?
Yeah, you can say like that. Everything is mostly are populated or concentrated into the 5 biggest islands. But out of the 5, it's mostly are concentrated in Java Island. That's where actually where Jakarta is. Java is is that island, and so yeah, it's more concentrated. All the buildings, all the infrastructure, everything, all the capitals is actually on that island. So that is actually, if you are following on Indonesia's news, we are actually trying to move the capital from Jakarta to some city in Kalimantan, in Borneo. It's another one of the 5 biggest islands. So in that terms, it's actually we are trying to perhaps the bigger vision is actually to see if the capital is not just moved around in Java Island, but if it's moved to another island, that it can bring some more, let's say, a better, just like you said, Robert, that 70s, like a 70% are on the lower income, right? So if we are trying to move that into another island, then perhaps that brings more equality in Indonesia.
Yeah. So also because of the fact that you've got those sheer number of islands and different levels of connectivity, that also puts quite a big challenge on the education system, doesn't it? In terms of trying to get teaching. That's true. Getting material.
That's true.
So how is the sort of education sort of structured? Because I'll be interested to see whether what sort of similarities there are with respect to, say, what's happening in Kenya, which Angela will be familiar with, in terms, and East Africa, because of the median age as being quite young. What are the challenges within the education system in Indonesia?
Well, the challenges is actually about the dispersion of the material, the good teachers, and everything like that. Also, for example, if you want to give, like now in pandemic time, like the last 2 years, then people are having difficulties as well. They want to stay at home, but they cannot really be at home because for example, in the bigger cities, then they can do like this study from home using the internet and everything else. But on the islands with lower internet bandwidth, let's say, then they cannot really do that, right? So things like that. But other than that, also, just like I said before, everything, including the capital, I mean, the money is concentrated in Java Island. So people are getting more money in Java, but less money on the other islands. In that case, I saw is actually that, the quality, like people on the other island is also trying to get into Java Island because you can get more money there. So that's basically it, right? So the good, let's say the good teachers also coming on into the Java Island, which is left people on the other island is, yeah, let's say less quality on the teachers, on the education and everything. So that's kind of a situation what we have here. But the funny thing is actually from the government itself, they want to make a centralized the same, everyone is having the same quality. They are giving out the same test, national test for the students. But then, yeah, that brings up another problem because the quality in other islands is actually much lower. So, for example, like Angela said, for example, in Java Island, students on the age of 10 years old or on the elementary school, they can read easily, right? They can read good, but on the islands like Papua, they might not be able to read just simple sentence, read and write simple sentence after they are like 17 years old. So that's kind of a gap that I might give you some image on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also in terms of like if we switch from education into like agriculture, both Indonesia and Kenya are in that nice temperate zone where coffee grows particularly well. So Indonesia is a big coffee growing economy, as is Kenya and all of the East African area, as is Latin America, some of the Latin American area. So everyone in that temperate zone. Well, one of the stuff I did I got some ethnographic research done many years ago with into some of the islands in Indonesia. And we were looking at, because there's also the pepper growing as well and various other things going on. And it was really interesting to see that the wealthiest person, for example, was those that owned the mobile phone shops in the villages. And, but the big problem was that largely, even if you grew stuff, it was difficult to get the supply chain, the information, get what you grew out into a wider market. That was always seen as being quite difficult. So even the comparison like between say what happens in Indonesia, if we just took the coffee growing industry versus what happens in Uganda and Kenya and Tanzania and stuff like that, because what's the contrast here? Geographically in Indonesia, that introduces big challenges with respect to supply chain related concerns. Whereas in the continent of Africa, East Africa and stuff like that, we don't have to cross seas, things like that, but the roads aren't necessarily that good. Angela and Jackie have talked about a problem within the coffee growing side of things, which is motivating people to work on the plantations, ensuring that they do a good quality job, those sort of things. What's the structure in Indonesia around those sort of things? What's happening there?
Well, I guess for everything like that, it's a more like we don't really have the system, especially from the government, to make sure that, hey, if you are doing your farm good, then you are ensured to get a good living, I mean, a good money from whatever you're selling, right? So it depends on who you know, and then who can get you the best price and everything like that. So so people are just not really how to say. People are not just worrying about how they planted good, but they will worry as well about, hey, after this, if you, let's say after a couple of months of growing the coffee until you get the coffee bean, and what will happen after this? Because sometimes when the price is actually on the consumer side is quite high, but then you have this kind of people, the traders, let's say, who buy the coffee bean really, really cheap, saying that, hey, it's now in the market, in the customer side is actually, we have to pay this and that for transportation, for production, for to make this available for the customer. It is a very high cost. Then we only can buy your coffee bean very cheap. That's basically the. Can you imagine that kind of situation? So what I heard is actually from, like in Germany, for example, then there is a
Oh, looks like Andy's dropped off. You there, Andy? No?
No, I think he's dropped off.
He's
used
dropped off.
every year, and
Oh,
then
he's back.
yeah, it's clear that okay, for that for that amount, then you get a certain price, and it's quite stable, you know. But here in Indonesia, it's still a mystery. After you produce something, and then what's the price? Will it good enough to cover all your expenses? Will it be more on that, or will it be just a fraction of that you are already spending? So yeah, I guess that.
So that would be interesting, Angela. How does that sort of relate to what your experience is with the structure of the coffee industry in Kenya?
I can absolutely relate to you have to know somebody. And so the sort of system where it's connection based, to be kind with the words, is tricky for anyone who's not in, who's not known. And so we've experienced a lot of people who previously had farms who were not able to, previously had coffee farms who were not able to make enough money, quit and build a block of flats over where coffee used to grow. And I've watched that happen over the last few years, where a lot of coffee farms that were closer to the city have disappeared. And while on the one hand, it's good to do business with people that you know, it's also very restrictive for, as we were talking about, new systems or exploring systems where a breakthrough could be made.
Lucas, oh, sorry, Lucas, I was wondering if, where are you coming in from? Yeah.
So I'm actually coming from Gimbalabs. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm a partner of Sebastian, so I decided to sit in from the beginning of this call because I'm based in Lisbon, and just getting familiarized with this. This is my first time here, so I'm glad to.
Yeah.
I'm happy to meet you. This is not my area of expertise at all, so I'm just listening in as I work. And thanks for passing me the ball for a sec, but I really don't have much to contribute. It's just really very interesting because I've only been in Catalyst for like 2 or 3 months, in Gimbalabs for 3 months, for example. I'm taking their course for Plutus, and I've also started sort of a side course of Cardano for non-technicals. So we play on testnet with tokens and send them to people, send them to our colleagues in the class. So I've been very happy to find this kind of discussions, because they're really what we need to focus on, or what gives us drive to build better solutions for the world. So I'm really happy to sit in on these talks, but it's really just something that I can't really give back so much on this topic.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
Or it's sort of like, just one of the things here is that we're just sort of doing at this bit, and I'll switch the focus a little bit, is just to give a sense of people's own experiences or relationship to their own country, their own environment, and what challenges they see. we, as being you're in Portugal and Joe and I are in New Zealand, and Andreas is in Germany. Andreas, you've got two views. You've got the Indonesian view and also the European view. So I'd be interested in just your reflections around what you are seeing. And then what we'll do is we'll switch into starting to dig more into system capital, but the ideas around it. But I'm just interested to know your reflections in your own environment around the sort of challenges that you see. And like education, we've talked about how every country, even here in New Zealand, we've got challenges. There's always inequality is growing. There is disadvantaged communities, even within New Zealand. Even we've got a lot of things that are great about this country, but we've also got a lot of things that are going the wrong direction. And so, what sort of things are you seeing? What things are you concern you? What from if you were given, here's a way of framing it. If you were given a purse of money to invest in good, what were the sort of things that you'd be interested in looking at trying to change or invest in? Based on what your experience
in Germany or in
what
Indonesia?
Either because you're sitting across both, Andreas.
Okay,
You've just got a young child coming in, and how would you like to see the world for her? That's think about it from that point of view.
Okay, so basically for me in Indonesia, I think like what Andy said, first infrastructure, internet, even our roads and so on must be built first, and after that educations, that's the most important part. I think we still lack there and especially difficulties because there are lots of islands, how to connect the logistics between these islands and so on. I'm sorry, I didn't participate from the start, so I still don't know what is the context in this case.
Right, the context here is we're talking about a discussion document that was raised from Griffith University, discussing this idea of systems capital and the ability to actually invest into a system. How do you improve a system overall? So before we even sort of go in and say, how can we sort of apply or explore ways of looking at how we could use a blockchain to help with systems capital, we've got to try and understand where is everyone coming from and what sort of things do they see. And that's like Andy was talking about, obviously the geographical locations of Indonesia, because of all the islands, introduces certain types of challenges. Indonesia itself is a relatively wealthy country, but that wealth is really skewed to certain areas like the main island, and it's a population of 270 million roughly, but of those 270 million, 220 million or whatever are in the lower poverty level or subsistence level, that sort of thing. So the question here is, more broadly, is in your environment, from your perspective, you're in Berlin, but you've also, from Indonesia, you are seeing two worlds. How would you like to see what sort of challenges do you see that need to be worked on? So education, roads, that sort of thing. And Lucas, the same question to you. What are you seeing?
Okay, let me read the article that Angela shared first. I'll come back to you again.
Yeah, it's a general question. That's all right. Lucas, you got any thoughts from your perspective, your advantage point? Nothing? No? Okay. Right out. Angela, you worked on the Gimbalabs Plutus course, didn't you? You put that together, yes. So you're working through some of the stuff that Angela put together for you, Lucas. Okay. So here we are, this idea of systems capital. Systems capital is a perspective on investing. Now, capital is this ability to effectively have what is called unrealized potential, is a way of thinking about capital. And most people are familiar with capital in the sense of financial capital. It's easy to understand. But in fact, there's actually a whole lot of different capitals. Okay, one of them is human capital. Angela, are you happy today? Are you feeling well today?
I am.
Yeah. Joe, are you feeling well today? Yeah.
Happy, healthy, wealthy, and wise, right?
Happy, healthy, and wise, right? So human capital is the sense of how your well-being, the individual well-being, right? We've also got manufactured capital. This is the idea of assets, buildings, physical buildings, physical things in your warehouse, your trees growing in your coffee plantation. That's what's referred to as manufactured capital. We've got financial capital, which is the idea of financial markets that most people associate with, with the word capital, right? There's something called relational capital, or social capital at some time. How good is a society? So Angela just articulated a point of view about that. 4 weeks ago, I was talking to Angela and she was feeling really, really apprehensive, weren't you? Really apprehensive, because what was happening was largely there were, well, you could describe it, Angela. I don't have to describe it. Why were you feeling apprehensive 4 weeks ago?
Because I have watched several elections go by and fires burn tons of people. I've watched the city shut down. I've watched the economy disappear for 3 years out of the result of a one-day vote. I've watched post-election violence in the past. And so having lived through that, I was very apprehensive about this election. And it was really, really good to see the general population come together and choose peace.
So that's an example of social capital, as we refer to it as, is that we can measure how much capital is unrealized potential within a society by its, how safe we feel. When it comes to an election here in New Zealand, it's like no issue. It's not like we've got election fraud or anything else like that. There's not going to be people, at least not yet, where we've got people trying to overthrow Parliament, although this Trumpism did actually come to New Zealand, and we did have an encampment this year, which we refer to as the anti-vaxxers and tin hat brigade, because literally some of them were wearing tin hats because they thought the government was trying to do things to them. But that's all the disinformation things. But in general, New Zealand society is really healthy, okay, in comparison to all the others. Lots of room for improvement. So the social capital notion is how healthy is a community, how healthy is, whether that's a small community of 10 people or a country of 5, 10, 2 or 270 million, okay? That's the notion of social capital. What are the social relationships between people? How trusted are they? So in the context of New Zealand, New Zealand's widely regarded as a high trust society, where we've got very, very low corruption, almost non-existent. And as a result, I don't fear at all post-election of any threat to my life or a breakdown or anything else like that in society. So that's the notion of social capital. The other popular definition of capital is environmental capital, which includes things like how polluted are your waterways? How polluted is your air? Is it healthy? Those sort of factors, right? So we can actually measure these sort of things. GDP, which is often used to measure the health of an economy broadly, is a metric that was developed in the 1930s and put into use largely post-Second World War to try, and it was only supposed to be used temporarily because they widely regarded it as a poor metric or poor measure to measure post-World War recovery. However, it kind of stuck, right? But an example of social capital is things like the happiness index that Bhutan uses to measure economic development, okay? Here in New Zealand, we have something known as the Living Standards Framework, which is basically trying to come up with different metrics to measure overall living standards, which goes across, in this case, 4 capitals, which are financial, manufactured, human or social capital, and environmental capital, okay? Now, these are all ideas that are underdeveloped at the moment, generally across the board, because it's a lot harder to measure social, environmental, and human capital. Right? It's a lot harder to measure that. And it's been a lot harder to measure those, to do it when we're just using this or pen and paper. But it's a lot easier to measure it when you've got machines, okay? So to give you an idea, Facebook knows how to measure attention. And they extract that attention and they make a lot of money from that attention, extracting that attention. Right? That's a capital. My attention, my cognitive processes and things like that are an important point of my health and wealth. Luckily, I don't spend any time on Facebook, so I'm in pretty good, healthy shape, right? From that point of view. But it's very real because Facebook is able to monetize your attention into a network, okay? So some of these ideas of different types of capital might sound airy-fairy, but in fact, they can be measured. And when you can measure things, they give you an indication of whether you're going in the right direction or the wrong direction. So in your case, Angela, your sense is enough to say, hey, the outcome of the elections turned out a lot better than I expected, right? It's going in a positive direction. And that's just enough. If I went off and measured, asked that question, do you think post-election we've made progress or not, right? And I asked 2 million people in Kenya just through the phone, that simple question, you've already got an indication of how good the social capital is. It may be an imperfect measure, but you can still do that, okay? So that's the idea of multi-capitals. And I've just talked about 4 or 6, but you can have an arbitrary number, to be honest. One example, 10 is a really good one. That's there's a really neat framework for that one called the meta, I can't remember it, Joe, what is it? It's the meta integral one, yeah. Couldn't remember the name. So you can have an arbitrary number of capitals. One capital that is used to measure, rightly or wrongly, the health of the environment are carbon credits. Now, ostensibly set up to say it's okay to pollute, but you've got to pay a cost. In reality, that's actually a measure and a unit of measuring the health of the environment with respect to carbon. So what happens in the carbon credit environment, everything gets related to greenhouse gases gets basically folded into carbon credits. And that then means that you can also price things like trees and the health of the soil, doing things like seaweed production and stuff like that. So there's a unit of account for measuring the health of economic activity related to the climate. It's an imperfect measure and stuff like that, and it's been gained left, right, and centre at the moment, but nonetheless, it is a way of doing that. Right. So system capital itself is saying, yeah, don't throw out capitalism. Well, people now, that's an important one. Don't throw it out, but change it. That's a statement. What's people's views on capitalism? This is a big political question. Anyone got any comments on what capitalism is? Or good, bad, ugly? Should throw it out? Should adjust it? Should keep with the current system? What do you think? Any thoughts?
I think it's just
No?
different names to manage value. No.
Capitalism is just a different way to manage value. Yeah.
Yeah, but most people's it's one of the names people call managing value.
Yep. So the difference between, say, socialism or capitalism is just different ways of managing value approaches. Is that a
Yeah,
fair statement?
in that example, it would be very different ways of managing value. But
Yeah. Yep. And is there one form of capitalism, or is there lots?
Lots, I think.
Yeah. Joe, any
It's
thoughts?
like multidimensional, right?
Yeah.
I'm a
So yeah.
fan of the multi-capital approach, right? So it goes side by side to the approach to identity. You know, like I would say I'm super wealthy, right, because of my social network, my family network, whānau network, we call it. Maybe financial capital, there isn't so much in the bank, but it's balanced out because I know that I have some, you know, I'm healthy and I'm comfortable because I know I've got this big network that I can rely on as well. So capitalism is working because I'm able to do what I love to do and earn enough to get by and have, you know, my needs met by different capitals, not necessarily just financial capital. It's not a struggle to, you know, I've got to earn $1 million tomorrow in order to have a decent life, right? So I'm very much in favor of, you know, having the various different levels of capital, more meaning attached to those different levels of capital as well. You don't really love having money in the bank. You can't really love that as such, as a human being. It's nice to have it, but it's not a fulfilling thing. At least, you know, it's not been my primary driver, right? Just to have lots of money in the bank. So I think capitalism can work, nevertheless.
Yeah, so capitalism in that sense is Angela, you got any thoughts on that? Or Gabriella or Andy? Any thoughts?
That's a deep question.
Yeah, I know. I tend to ask those things. Don't worry about
You
that.
kind of do. So there's many years of history within that question, and the question of has communism worked for example, Russia? Has communism worked for China? How would you quantify that? Closer to home, has communism worked for Ethiopia? I would say no. I would say no. I would say in East Africa, well, in Ethiopia, it was more socialism, but anyway, I have never experienced poverty such as the poverty I saw under a communist system, personally. And it was quite jarring to realize that what Joe is saying, capitalism worked for me and for my society. And so while I have plenty of issues with where it's ended up on a larger scale thought pattern, you know, looking at it from a bigger picture, I am not hungry. I am fed and I am clothed. And it's as a result of quite an individualist perspective rather than a communal perspective. And so it's a tricky line to walk, because whichever system you pick or are born into, there's pluses and minuses. One of the minuses on my side is there's been a huge loss of community, or the community aspect, under systems like communism, because it's very individualist. It's a complicated question, Robert. Anyone else?
I'll go with Lucas's assessment that capitalism is a system of trying to establish value. A little bit further than that, the idea of capital largely is this idea of unrealized product potential is the core of it. And so when we talk about being able to deploy capital, what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to realize it. Right, which is why when you start thinking like that, right, then the idea of human capital, we're trying to deploy human capital. The pretext being, or the assumption being here, is that happy people, you know, produces a happy society, that type of thing. We don't want to see lots of people being killed. We don't want to see people being unhealthy. We don't want to see people, young teenagers running around with machetes, setting on fire and attacking people, as you expressed to me the other month, because they feel disaffected. It's not good for everyone, right? So we want to be able to have capital that we can deploy, in the sense that if we can deploy human capital where everyone feels relatively safe and therefore comfortable that they can explore, as we use in Catalyst, explore the highest potential. What we're actually asking in that question is, can we deploy the human capital, the energy that we have, to work on problems that matter, right? So viewed through that lens, you know, the idea that capital is this unrealized potential that we want to try and deploy. Capitalism is the process of trying to effectively deploy that to the things that we consider most valuable. Here's the trick question, okay? The trick here is the form of capitalism that is dominated, or come to dominate, is effectively American consumer capitalism. The idea that we have to produce lots and lots of shit, and we have to grow to find markets for that shit. And we've got this notion of growth that is predicated just on financial capital. So that's the problem, in my view, is that we're valuing, as Lucas's idea, and within the capital system, we are valuing things through a very, very narrow lens, that of a single capital called financial capital. And so the previous discussion there is around trying to expand it to include multiple capitals. Okay, and the system capital lens that we're talking about in terms of the paper there is about trying to invest in things holistically, trying to invest in things using multiple capitals. Now, we've just talked about 4, 6, 10, depending on what you want to do, but there is actually an arbitrary number, but our cognitive loads can't handle with too many. And we need to put that into some sort of framework. The meta-integral framework that Joe's put a link to in there looks at it from 10 capitals. It's actually quite a good rounded sort of system looking at multiple capitals. The New Zealand government has developed what's referred to as the wellbeing budgets. The wellbeing budget is based on 4 capitals that I've mentioned earlier. Financial, manufacturing, or intellectual, as I think is referred to, and environmental and human. So This is a requirement for all government agencies in New Zealand to report their budgets using those 4 capitals. They have to do that. Okay, so that's a really good start. It's the first government in the world to actually do that. And that in turn is based on something called the Living Standards Framework. And a part of that is also a response to, or an attempt to include the worldview of our Indigenous population, which is Māori. I'm Māori. Jo is Māori in the sense that her children are Māori and her husband's Māori, and she's heavily involved with the Māori community, her tribe as a result. Now, the viewpoint of Indigenous cultures generally, and I think Angela and Andy, push back on these because in a sense you've got the same sort of point of view here from an Indigenous point of view, but the tribal societies for starters. So tribal societies coexisted before we had the notion of legal violence. Before we had the state, an omnipresent state that could impose legal violence on people. So in this environment, we had to have notions of different centers of decision making. And all these little tribes had to try and figure out, they didn't always do it well, but figure out how to work together. And in the case of Māori, we definitely view the world through a holistic systems lens. Right? It's imbued into the culture. It's talked about all the time, a systems lens. There's 3 kind of core properties within a systems lens that Māori talk about. One is intergenerational. I'm thinking about and planning or being the guardian, not for my children, but for my children's children's children, that type of thing. I'm looking at the generations, a long-term view, not a short-term view. Okay. Secondly, we are looking, everything is interconnected. That's the system view. Everything is interconnected. Everything's related in some way. You can't just look at one thing individually and isolate it from anything else. Everything is interconnected. So those 2 properties, those 2 ideas within Māori culture, there's a few others, but they're kind of the core of this systems viewpoint. Intergenerational, everything's connected. Okay? And that comes through all of the sort of cultural aspects of Māori, and the practices, the stories, the narratives, those sort of things. This notion of being a kaitiaki, a guardian of the environment. And the photo behind me, which is down in the Araraki, which is the mountains down there, but not my mountains, but my mountain has got legal status in New Zealand. The reason for that, in other words, it's got legal personhood. Right, means it's protected as a person in the legal system, and you can be charged criminally in New Zealand for damaging that mountain and the environment around it. Right? It's protected by the legal system, as are several rivers. Okay, so a lot of these sort of things inform decisions and stuff like that that are going on in the country because of the Māori aspect. So, so the system lens is looking at everything's interconnected, right? It's also saying the systems foundation, the systems capital point of view is saying we're not throwing out capital, because ultimately the capitalism and indeed financial markets are supposed to be trying to do this. Capital is this unrealized potential in society, and we've got to figure out how to allocate it appropriately to where it's needed most. All right, where it's needed most. But when your primary metric is only along one dimension, such as finance, and you're told you've got to increase that one, you've got to get a return on that one dimension, you're going to look to do everything that increases that potential, aka that profit, financial profit. Okay, you're going to do everything you possibly can, which means to lower your costs, which might be to externalize it, i.e. pollute, or destroy the fabric of society, which is Facebook's that we're doing quite well at, and you know, force down labor costs, those sort of things, because you're after that one dimension. When you bring in a multi-capital lens, you start to get a bit more nuanced about what you actually think profit should be, because now you can measure across all different types of things, so 10, 4, 6, whatever you want. Okay, so that all makes sense, because there's punchline coming up in a moment on this one. Does that all make sense to everyone? This
Very
idea
much,
of multi-capital?
Robert.
Yeah. Right. Here's the punchline. The punchline is Cardano is the only, or more specifically, the UTXO model, the extended UTXO model, and therefore Cardano, which is the model that underlies Cardano, is the only system out there in the world today, okay, that supports the idea of multi-capital accounting natively. Right at the bottom, right? Nothing special you have to do. In Ethereum, you have to go off and write a contract that conforms to the ERC 1155, right? Whereas in Cardano, we can just create as many assets, native assets, as we like, and we can bundle all of those up into a single output. Value in Cardano is defined as a series of multiple capitals, i.e. tokens, or multi-asset tokens. So I can create a bundle of tokens as a single output, a single unit of value. And then I can use Plutus and stuff to control the rules around how those tokens that represent different sorts of stores of value can be distributed. Okay. So Cardano itself has this very unique property of effectively being, there's different names for it, multi-capital, you could say multi-capital bookkeeping, or a vector-based accounting, more or less the same thing. But value in Cardano is defined as a vector, and that's quite unique. Right? And that is also the basis of a global bookkeeping system for multi-capital accounting. Right? And once we do that, then we can introduce systems, because we've got things like Plutus that can start to treat the financing models based around that. So we can literally start to do financing in a systems capital point of view, which is what the paper was is about, how to do that. So how does that relate to what we were talking about earlier in terms of like coffee supply chains and the other education, power grids we've talked about, those sort of three things, right? How can we actually use that? Even just if we stuck to the idea of multi-capitals. Right? Why do I say that? What is a multi-capital? Tokens can represent anything that we like. Okay, so I can mint all different types of tokens very easily. And those tokens can represent any sort of value I care about. Represent value, right? So if I go off and do a CNFT collection of 10,000 parrots, bored parrots, let's say, for argument's sake, because instead of apes, we'll go with parrots. If I go off and do a collection like that, well, the store of value is in that collection, right? Each of those tokens represents some unique properties. Collectively, they represent a community or people that care about that or participate in it. That's a simple way of thinking about it. we've got this idea of non-fungibility versus fungibility. Tokens can take on that form. The other aspect that we've got inside Cardano is the ability to ascribe metadata to each of the transactions that occur. Right, it's intrinsically we can add metadata to any of the transactions. So we've got the ability to do multi-capital accounting, as value is defined as multi-capitals. We've got the ability to pay in a single transaction or transfer to a lot of different places, a lot of sets of different addresses all in a single transaction. And we've got the ability to add metadata to each of those transactions to give more context to what the transaction is about. Okay? So that is all the things you need in a bookkeeping system. That is the basis of an accounting system, right? A multi-capital accounting system. The reason why I call it an accounting system, yeah?
That's
Joe,
the real
sorry?
punchline. That's the real punchline. It's all an accounting system, basically.
Yeah. And you might think, oh shit, that's really boring, the accounting system and stuff like that. But fundamentally, that's what a blockchain is, right? And literally, if you want to change the world, then change accounting. Because it's counting, which is the profession of value measurement. Right. So that's what you've got. Accounting has been around since more or less unchanged sort of since 14, whatever it was, when Piccoli came out and sort of said, hey, here's my book of magic and algebra, and described double entry bookkeeping, right? And now, accounting systems literally rule the world. Tell me if there's any organization around the world that doesn't use some form of either single or double entry accounting to manage its resources. So this is the idea of a pervasive idea that's used everywhere in the world in different forms, but it's largely anchored around a single unit of account. With multi-capital accounting, we can introduce many units accounts. And that is really what that systems design paper is talking about. How do we invest in multiple things holistically and achieve a sort of balance in terms of different type of profit? Still profit, but a profit that takes in lots of different factors. And inside Cardano, we've actually got a system that will do that. There's a bit of a rant. Any questions? Any thoughts? And then I might, to finish off in the next 20 minutes, we'll go into seeing how we could apply that to three of the sort of problem areas that were introduced. Education, supply chains, and like power, because Andy brought up power, wherever Andy's gone. He's probably cut off. So any thoughts on that? Yeah, Lucas.
Yeah, so I have two thoughts. I'm trying to hold on to them because they're really vague, but the first of them is that we've had accounting for a lot of time, and so in that sense, Cardano is just another accounting system. The advantage here is that we control the tokenomics, and especially ADA as a store of value is not, influenced by governments and monetary policy. So I do appreciate, and what you were telling me is, I'm a Cardano native. I've worked in accountancy 10 years, so I know the ins and outs. But I also, in terms of crypto, I'm a Cardano native, so I wasn't aware that Ethereum cannot send several tokens, or I'm not sure about any of that. But in practical terms, it is an accountancy system. It's a great accountancy system, especially because of what you highlighted. But even I usually, sometimes I do Web3 talks or something, and I say money has been digital for ages. Yes. In the central banks computers. The difference now is that it's a peer-to-peer system. It's in our computers, and functionally, that is just a recording mechanism. The advantage here is the tokenomics that we imprint upon our tokens. In the case of ADA, that's the backbone of it, that it's not inflatable, etc. Now, talking about the tokens that we may create to represent value, and this is something that we go over in Gimbalabs and in several communities, even in small projects, like I'm starting a crypto tattoo thing or something. If we create a community token, there's this notion that it's like shares, and I'm going to be spreading out the token through my peers, and like if it's I'm spreading shares of the company. But in the end, in tokenomics and in the way it works in terms of a preserving value or comparable value to ADA, for example, that value is subjective to supply and demand, to the to market rules. So to be able to say that I created a community and I have this Gimbals, for example, it's the Gimbals, the Gimbalabs token, and that it has a value, like it's 1/10 of an ADA or something. For it to preserve that value, it would need a working market every day. It would need liquidity, and I don't want to drag you into all this talk, but it's just some notions that I'm starting to mature as well. And so to articulate all this with the accountancy paradigm, if you can call it that you were explaining. Does this help?
No, I can talk exactly to that, and I don't disagree with your idea of liquidity on that area. I won't, I mean, all I'll say there is, yes, I agree with you exactly. I won't go into sort of some of all the market mechanisms and stuff, the things that I'm working on that would enable exactly that. But the point being is you've got continuous liquidity to actually establish the true value of what something is. So this is different than where you've got a single unit of account upon which you do all your books at the moment. You've got to have a highly dynamic sort of system, which is always continuously valuing different stores of value, which are largely regarded as community on that front. So I totally agree with you what you're talking about. Yeah, and I could go on about that for a long time, that particular dimension. Maybe something to discuss.
I think it's really fascinating what you were explaining, but I just think it's challenging how we would really make our token be constantly or have a value, be a store of value, even for our organization.
Yeah, that's actually not hard to do. Okay. Not with the underlining things that we've got available to us, the tools that we've got available to us. Okay. Because essentially with the combination, sure, we've got a bookkeeping layer, which does unit of value as a vector. And we've got rules around how to transfer that and stuff. But we've also got now the ability to extend those rules, which is what the Plutus sort of script language enables us to do, right? To extend those rules to create that liquidity that you're talking about, right? And it's a different approach. Even the sort of mindset that we currently have at the moment within, say, like the crypto native world at the moment, is predicated on the idea that you can mint a whole 10,000 or so tokens all at once, and then we've got to have something like an AMM to actually do the constant conversion, right, between the different tokens. Okay, so that's one notion, but that's by no means the best approach to do it.
Well, the AMM is just a result of this supply and demand that needs to happen. If you can have order book or AMM or anything, but regardless of the facilitating mechanism for trading, you need to have people that want to sell and buy. Those are the providers of liquidity. To have the AMM is something that, it's a proxy. It's something that you won't have an AMM if you don't have supply and demand. To a certain extent, the AMM which is why amplifies it, it lubricates the relationship, but it doesn't solve anything because there's no incentive to have an AMM on something that doesn't have supply and demand, the pure buyers and sellers.
Right. And that's why the idea here is that the community, in terms of the value that the community as well as the store of value. All right. So if people don't like my board parrot NFTs, no one's going to buy them. No one's going to care. All right. If, how for some reason, they like the idea of Kears, which is the native parrot of one of the native parrots in New Zealand, one of the smartest birds in the world, apparently. But you know, if everyone cares about the board care power line club, whatever we want to call it, you know, then you know, the value of them goes up. If no one cares about it, then it's got no value whatsoever. So if you can curate a community of value, a system of store of value through what you're trying to do, then that's where the value comes from, right? So when we look at a nation currency, you know, a sovereign thing like the US dollar or the euro or New Zealand dollar, the Australian dollar, whatever, that is a community in the broad sense of the word. And we're all buying into that social construct that says we value it. We agree, we believe that, you know, the central banks of Europe and the Fed and the US or whatever are doing their job, and the government's policies are good, and that's what gives it its value. People want to use it. When they stop believing in it, then it loses all its value. And we've seen that all over the world every time. However, doing community-based currencies has always been pretty tricky in the past, but now we can do it far more efficiently. Right? Now we can lower the cost of trusting. Still trust. So there's
I have a
question. Yeah.
I was wondering, listening to your vision, your explanation, which I really like. How do you see that the cryptocurrency, or say the Cardano as a basics of what you're talking about, in a community which stores value, does it create a conflict with the major central banks' interest? Because if the community grow as we wish it is, in the direction you are pushing to, it creates a resistance to the control, to the power today in the hands of a central bank, regardless of which country. How do you see that?
I don't disagree with you. Power doesn't like to give up easily, so it will push back on those sort of things. But largely, I think what we're talking about here is not big currencies like ADA, you know, in terms of the cryptocurrency spaces like Ethereum, Bitcoin, or ADA. What we're talking about is small pockets. Community values, a community can be a small group of people centered around a given idea. Where it becomes powerful is that we've got millions of those small communities, and they're able to exchange value according to what is important to them, to the properties that are important to them. That's what we've got available to us. And so, in a sense, would a central bank or something push back against that? Probably not, because they wouldn't know how to necessarily on that area. And in the case of New Zealand, I would say, actually, the regulators here, I think, are pretty open to the idea of doing that. You know, are actually trying to, what we refer to, devolve decision making so it goes away from the central government and moves out towards the edges. There is an interest in doing that, and we've also actually have a particularly good benefit here in New Zealand, which is the Māori community generally has a very unique position with respect to the state government, which is in principle they're supposed to have co-governance, shared governance between the state and the Māori groups. So that's another aspect of that.
I was mentioning it because I am in China now, and you may know that the blockchain fundamentally was blocked 3 years ago, and there are many reasons for that. But the most believed one is that there is the centralized blockchain, which is actually a contradiction by itself, but the EUN, the central bank digital currency, was the main purpose of the government, and having a blockchain development, regardless of Cardano or Ethereum, would have been a big resistance for that, a risk as well.
I don't think it's anything specifically to do with blockchain per se, because in 2000 I was in China, or I was working in China and Macau and stuff in 2006, 2008 period, and they brought in a regulation around all the virtual assets that were being in-game assets and stuff that was starting to be used to trade in the real economy, the physical economy for goods and services. And so they brought in a law at that time to try and squash that. Then you had the thing like WeChat, and introduced they did a marketing campaign in 2000. I can't remember exactly when, where I can't remember it now. It's the gifting of, there's a period where you gift a red envelope kind of period. I can't remember it all now. But they built on the back of that to use, to bootstrap the payment system of WeChat. And now, of course, that attracted a lot of interest. So, but here was a central entity that they could control. So they didn't want to give up any control there either but they've let it evolve, but they've still got complete control. The big challenge with respect to things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and any of the other blockchains is that there is, in principle, no central control. Right, so it's harder to do exactly what they did at the various different points in time. So
yeah, that was my point. So
yeah,
in China, it is blocked. So it is not allowed to work on a decentralized system.
Yeah. And so that's the nature of the political situation in China. It would be relatively difficult, and I don't think regulators here in New Zealand would like to do that. That's certainly true in Australia as well. I think they're more liberal in terms of trying to create more, what we say, market friendly, so to speak, more aligned to trying to open, have different types of markets rather than a centralized bureaucracy do things. So it's going to be a point where different countries will have different approaches to regulating and either enabling or shutting things down, depending on what they want to achieve on that front. Yeah.
I'd love to hear what Joe had to say.
Yeah.
I was just gonna kind of introduce, I'll ask a question about the Gimba tokens, but also kind of introduce a concept of time as well, right, and composability. So for one of the projects that we've had funded through Catalyst is a project to turn rules into code. And we're about halfway through the project. We're 3 months into the project, and we, the project we had funded was to take a specific piece of New Zealand legislation and code that, essentially, produce an app that would allow people to see their eligibility for a particular benefit and whether they were entitled to it, by literally coding all of those laws into something that can then be used in an app. And there's about 18 people in total now involved in that project, all volunteering to put their time in on top of whatever else they're doing, right? And being paid for that extra work, which is in evenings and weekends and gaps in the working day, etc. And we were talking about how we organize this community. We want this community, having started to work together, to stay together. And so we're talking about things like, how do we have a community token, turn up for the community conversations as well as the project conversations. And that conversation on Friday, just gone, was, yeah, but we're interested in tokens and kind of having essentially a credential to say we've worked on this project, but we're not necessarily interested in the economics of it. You know, the value of the work is intrinsic to us to see more people getting, you know, that are eligible, getting what they're entitled to, right? That's why we're doing it, and we're being paid for our time. And it's great to have this credential, this token that says we were involved in it, but we're not necessarily interested in the economics. If we decide to do this and we go down this road and we issue a token, maybe in the future those tokens will be worth something, right? But I don't think it's necessarily, you know, you have to have the token and you have to have the market and you have to have the liquidity all at the same time. You know, they can be at different points when the community
I agree
decides
with that. Yeah,
that they want to have that, you know, to be involved in that. It's just another.
Joe,
I don't know how.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I like your approach and it makes sense to me, but I have a basic question. Why do you need the token? So
what we've found through this first 3 months is so law is ambiguous, right? Like it's become clearer and clearer how ambiguous it really is, right? So we've done a lot of work between us as a community to understand each other's values and where we're coming from in order to do this work together, right? And also understand our social capital. What are our networks that we can draw on, right? So there's been a lot of community building work that we didn't budget for, right? And as I say, as we've gone along, we've decided, you know, that this is a community worth cohering and eventually growing, you know, like, and possibly replicating, right? So there's definitely going to be more community work that needs to be done. And we want to be able to kind of identify ourselves essentially, which is why we're kind of talking about it as a credential at this point, as we're involved in this community and we've done some of this work, right? Which is where the kind of token or credential came into the conversation. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very well. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm interested to know if Gimba tokens work on the same kind of basis, Lucas, because I don't know enough about Gimbalabs and the Gimba token.
Yeah. Well, I have Sebastian and apparently Angela has worked on Gimbalabs a lot. So maybe I would pass the ball to them. But yeah, from my personal point of view, I have a few gimbals that James gave me, the founder, one of the founders, and I treasure them as that type of meaning. But it's just different of thinking it has a commercial value, especially for now. It reminds me as well of what we think of that happened with Bitcoin and maybe and obviously with Cardano, which is the notion of a fair launch. In the fair launch, that people are just doing it because they want, and when Satoshi was mining the first blocks, it was worth, you know. So yeah, the thing then is to think that gimbals may actually become widespread enough to create a commercial value. But yeah, I'm curious to hear Angela and Sebastian about this.
I was part of the PPBL team, Volume 1. It started about a year ago. And so I was involved in the team while they were creating the gimbal tokens. And I think, again, it's all about community. It does bounce back to the community. And the only reason we can even talk about gimbals is because James has been so faithful. You know, every Tuesday he's been so faithful. You know, he's been doing this for a while. And, you know, if he continues and Sebastian and Lucas and whoever else, you know, support him, we don't know where it could go in terms of the possibilities again. It's quite exciting.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I think Angela, if I look at but I think Angela has better information than me, but as she said, it's an experiment for one side, and for the other it's about community, about how the community can make things around many other things, for example, in education or in development of infrastructure, many things, and we are trying to get that concept and make some shade. For the moment, it's a complete experiment. There is no value in it, financial value in the token.
Yeah.
But in general, we are trying to make things in this point. Maybe with time we can get some more solid and complete use cases for the token. But for in this moment, the token is used for many organizations in the ecosystem as a medium of reputation, incentive for take action in many social and environmental, economic ways.
Yeah.
And the people itself is given some value to the token. The token is alive for the people in general.
Okay. Sorry, I have to cut everyone off here because we've now got the Gimbalabs session starting in this room here, and for some reason I can't seem to create another breakout room. I'm not sure why for Gimbalabs, but it's been 2 hours of discussion on this area covering systems capital in the English room. So I appreciate everyone's contribution to that, and also listening to my ramble whenever I do, because I tend to have a tendency to do that, sorry. Anyway, so thank you very much for coming along. We can continue this conversation around systems capital in the English room with the next Eastern Town Hall. And at this time, I would like to hand over to Andreas and Jan to take away things on the Gimbalabs front. And I am going to go away now and get some sleep. So with that, thank you, everyone. Lovely seeing you all. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And I will hand over to you, Andreas.
Thank you, Robert. Could you hand over the host and co-host to Jan and me? Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
I will do.
Thank you, Robert. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm currently at a conference, so I won't be able to join for a lot of time, but I see that there are the usual participants. I see Arman, I see Sonny, and I see you yourself, Andreas. And I just want to say thank you guys for always keeping the spirit up, for always being enthusiastic in joining the Gimbalabs Train the Trainer. As a reminder, Gimbalabs Train the Trainer is a precursor towards a proposal to compensate this very program and to compensate the future trainers, which hopefully are you, Andreas, Arman, and Sonny. With that said, welcome, Sebastian. It's always great to see you. Please do take this class. It's now in your hands.
You're still muted, Sebastian. I already gave you the co-host also.
Sorry. Okay, thanks for having me here. I'm from Gimbalabs. Lucas is from Gimbalabs also, and I see some students of the other sessions, and also students from this session in Eastern Town Hall. Okay. My intention is provide the sufficient knowledge based on the Plutus PPBL and the work we're doing in Gimbalabs, to practical knowledge to in some way habilitate to the students to make a tutor job or trainer job in general. And one of the pieces, of the important pieces, is how to establish the environment, the developed environment. I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, this is one of the main parts, and this part has the fame of being the most difficult, but in the reality, it's not so difficult when the proper work, the proper time, the proper effort. I don't know if you listen, so you heard in some point about the Cardano CLI, or about Nix, or about how to install Nix, or how to install so other tools of develop that are essential to our instruments, our tools for all the developers on Cardano. So my idea in this, I'm going to try to make this session concise and short, but concreting the point to the necessity to install the tools necessary to begin our journey as developers. Okay. As I said before, we have two phases. We have two phases of the coin. We have some experiences that we make as users in the web, in the outside of the Cardano ecosystem itself. We can make some things as users. For example, we can create an address through a wallet, as we made in the past session. This is my wallet, my Eternal wallet. As remember that we are experiencing some changes in the testnet, as I commented in the last session, and those changes are spin around this around this the change in the testnet, the modifications on the testnet. Before we had a normal, a unique testnet, but today we have various testnets at disposition. We play with this pre-production testnet because it's the most the testnet for the testing is this for the moment. Okay, I can, as a user, I can open a new address and open a new account in a wallet. It's very easy, but that is only as a user. So at the wallet, this is the Eternal wallet, and I used in this moment the Eternal wallet because I think that is I don't know if I think NAMI, for example, doesn't habilitate the pre-production testnet yet. So I think the Eternal is the
not yet.
Not yet. Okay. And I think, for example, Game Changer, the one that we saw in the past session, it's also not doesn't have that pre-production test, but eternal make the modifications. So simply, as a user, create wallet, name of my wallet. Remember, this is just for educational purposes. Don't make this in public. This is a personal situation. I'm gonna open here my my notepad, simply for remember some data. Wallet one, okay, ABCDF. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna make this very simple. Sorry. Create wallet. Okay. And remember, number of accounts. Internal has then the property of makes various accounts, but we select for the moment just one and save. And I confirm the screen. Remember, this is just for educational purposes. And first, I establish my password. Next, the number of accounts. Next, this thing of make sure that anybody can see your screen, and this is your seed phrase. All as a user, all this mechanic is as a user, but when you are in the position of a developer, is different. Okay, yes, okay, and no, I'm gonna facilitate this because in the past I can copy and paste those phrases. Okay, continue. And I have to write all my seed phrases. And as a user, it's really easy to make these things. You just have to make some this enter of words, and that's all. But as developer, you make other things for create the same instruments. Okay. I'm sorry for this process, but this is this it's what it is. On that. Each one of these words start to form or give shape a kind of a long a string composed of numbers, a long hex, a hexadecimal number. And as a user, you can think, you don't have to think about that. But in the developer experience, you can see those processes taking place. Okay, I understand that the only way to recover my wallet is computer is broken, storing our stuff. Okay. Confirm and continue. And the wallet is created, a new wallet. I have in this moment, I have two wallets. This is the recently created, and this is one that used in many cases, include this session. So this is the simple way. The simple way, sorry, Sebastian, how to get this phrase if I create via Cardano key. Okay. In pre-prod, I just get excellent question. I'm gonna go to that. Jan, how you have this? Excellent. Okay, Andreas, that's the specific point. Okay, I create an address through wallet, through a wallet like Eternal in this way, but create an address through a development tool is development two is different. And as a developer, you have to make the things in different way. This is the way. And this is the step that you have to start to work to develop your develop as a developer, of course. Okay, in this computer, I have two things. I have my Cardano node, and I have a Cardano CLI. The Cardano CLI is simply a software that permits me permit the communication with that node, and the node communicates with the blockchain. In some point, if you have questions, please don't take the mic and make the questions that you can have. Okay, and this is my computer, and I go to create an address through Cardano CLI. In other ways, I'm gonna create an address, but through the tools of development on Cardano. I'm going to the Cardano CLI. I'm going to the CMD. This is my machine is a Windows machine, so I have to make some tweaks to work on Linux. In machines, if you have Mac or you have a Linux machine, you don't have to make these things. But I have a Windows, so I have to make different things. In a Windows machine like this, I have to habilitate a partition, a Linux partition, to make my work in the Cardano CLI, in the Cardano tools. Okay, this is my CLI. I have to habilitate a WSL session to start to work in Linux. This is my session. This is my Linux session. And once here, you don't have to understand for the moment. So if you don't understand these steps, don't worry. This is not the idea of this session. The idea is just take a grasp of how the developer on Cardano make the initial things. I know that for no reason I'm not a proficient developer. I'm in the process of learning, as you, how to make better things in the Cardano blockchain. But these things are the basic things that all the developers make when they start their day-to-day in the Cardano blockchain as a developers. So don't worry about understand or memorize or learn the commands or the lines of these mechanics. Don't worry. Just try to appreciate the process. That is simple. And the parallel and the important is understand the parallel between open an account or open a wallet through a browser, and how to open how to build an address. But the goal when you open a wallet and through a browser is get an address. Get an address. It is all the goal. Get an address. And through the Cardano or through Cardano CLI and through other tools. That's the goal also. So okay, I'm gonna open my node, my Cardano node. That's only this activity. All just is about open the. This is all about open the node that I have installed in my machine. I have okay. I'm gonna write some lines. Don't worry. All this you are gonna to learn all these commands and lines. You are gonna learn with you start to make the lessons or the task of the PPBL and the Gimbalabs Canva. And okay, this is the node. This is the node that I have installed locally in my machine. And the node moves, makes some things. That's not a problem. I'm just interested in run the node, and that's all. And I minimize this screen and open a new screen, a new CMD, and open again my WSL session, a new WSL session. Okay, from here. I suppose you run the Cardano node in prepod. That's the no, on the node. The node it's a general node. It's not a node. It's not a node specifically for testnet, preprod, or mainnet. This is a general. This is only this node doesn't make any difference about testnet or main. It's a general it's a node for a general purposes. When I'm the differentiation between topology JSON, you need to specify. Yes, that's in this part, and I don't want to go deeply in this in that, but the topology JSON file is one of the files needed to run that to install and run the node. But the idea is, for example, the node, in this case, and in the general cases, the node is just a contact, just a way in which we establish communication with the blockchain. And we have one of those babies in our machines. And the idea is you install your own node in your machine. That's one part. Now, the other part is you open a new session, and in this session, you are gonna make your work. You let this screen open, and you start to work your work in other session. Let's okay. This is my new session, and in my new session, I'm gonna create the address, my new address. The result will be the same as the result that we obtain in this with this in the browser. That will be the same. I'm gonna prepare. I'm gonna close this. I'm prepare my commands previously. And I have to say, I'm not a genius. And many people that I know are not geniuses. We are simply common people with some interest in this, in the interest of develop skills in blockchain and in Cardano. And we are not, in my case, I'm not special. So all this process is simply a question of practice, a question of follow the rules, follow the commands. For example, create an address is a mechanic process. And as many other processes, there are pre-established lines or pre-established commands to make some tasks. For example, those are the commands needed to create a wallet, a simple wallet. And create a wallet is the most elemental task in all this Cardano blockchain. So I'm going to create through my Cardano CLI. As I said before, Cardano CLI is simply a software that let me do things in the blockchain. It's a tool of communication, a communication tool. So, as Andrea said, you need a pair of keys, a verification key, and a signing key. But don't worry, that you don't have to understand for the moment these things. I'm gonna copy and paste. That's so simple. But excuse me. Okay. In the moment, I'm going to make a folder that I prepared in previous to this session. This is okay. Create new address. Okay, it's empty. Again, I'm gonna repeat the process. I'm gonna copy all this first step, and enter. Simple. Second step, copy. All of these are commands previously established. All the people used those commands to make an address on Cardano. It's not a secret. Okay, the second and the third. And you can see it's really easy and more quick than the browser's process. Okay, the 3 steps. I review my folder, and in the folder I have payment is my two keys, signing key and verification key, and other two keys related to the stake issue. And I feel okay. Wait, I lost one of the commands. Sorry. Okay. Don't pay attention to this. Just, I made a mistake and I'm going to invoke the wrong commands, but we are fine now. Okay. Okay. And enter. Okay. LS. And here I have the others. And if I review that file, I can see here the address. It's a testnet address. So I have here the words test, ADDR, test, and all the rest. And as you can see, in the wallet that I made through the browser, I have the same address. So as a user, you do this. As a developer, you do this. And as a user, you make this, you build this address based on this seed phrase. The wallet as a app, as a program, take this each word of this seed phrase and compiles and cryptographically and progressively give shape to an address like this, give a long hexadecimal word, hexadecimal string like this. But as a developer, through the Cardano CLI, you give shape to this address through these keys, the famous keys. And repeat, don't worry if you in this moment don't understand all these commands of things about the commands needed to make the payment keys, so state keys, and also you need in this moment to understand what is keys or state keys or payment keys. It's not a problem in this moment. Just understand. Can we record the wallet that we create in Cardano CLI to turn on wallet? I don't. Can we recover? No, I don't think so. I don't know. Lucas, you have some idea? I don't think so, because in the wallet you need the seed phrase, but the Cardano CLI is not based in the generation of seed phrases. It's just an address. The important thing about the addresses in general is the property to send and receive assets. In general, money, tokens, native tokens, NFTs, etc., etc. That's his main property. But as you can see here, for example, in this session restore wallet, you need 24 words, 15 words, or 12 words. As a you need the seed phrase. And for the moment, maybe I can be wrong, but I don't think that you can recover your address generated through the Cardano CLI through a wallet, but I don't know. A possibility to use key to generate mnemonics. Yes, okay, because I never see any. See, I don't. Me neither. I don't see that. But the important thing is you can, as a user, you can lost your seed phrase. You can lost your seed phrase, and as a developer, you can lost your keys. You can lose these keys. That's important. But this issue of recover your address through the wallet, I don't have the sufficient knowledge in this moment. But I think that could be possible. Okay. Okay. This is the way in which you build an address through Cardano CLI. Other thing that you make as a user is send funds to other address. And you can make that, you can make it through a wallet based on browser, or you can make it through a tool, a development tool as the Cardano CLI. How you can do that? For example, simply in the send option, the receive option, you can copy this. Then you go to your wallet. You request to the other person. You request to the other person the address. And you take that address and you send some assets, ADAs, tokens, NFTs. Funds, 10 ADAs, test ADAs, because we are in pre-production. Next, my spending password. I have that spending password here. And sign. Sign is the same. You have here invalid password. Sorry. Okay. Go. This is the password of the previous session. And remember, when you, as a user, you sign this transaction, you need to sign every transaction that you make in the blockchain. And you being in your wallet, you sign this transaction with the click of this button. Simply. But when you are in the testnet, you are in the blockchain, you are in your Cardano CLI, you sign your transactions through this key. Through this key. You sign all your transactions with this key, with that key. Okay, here here, pending transaction. I go to my transactions. 10 is a transaction ID. I review, I check this transaction in the Cardano scan. As we saw in the last session, we have this kind of websites to make follow of the transactions. This transaction, I made this transaction. We made this transaction in a few seconds, and we have here 10 ADAs. It's really simple, and this wallet has 10 ADAs, test ADAs. Now, in the through the Cardano CLI, the experience is different because we are talking in this session, we are talking about experiences, not about commands or about how to make this or how to make that. We are talking just about experiences. What is, how it's experience of create an address as a user, and how is make the experience of make an address or create an address through a developer tool as the Cardano CLI. In this moment, we are appreciating the experience of create or the experience of send funds to other wallet through as a user. And in this moment, we are gonna see how is the experience of send funds to other address, no other wallet, other address through the Cardano CLI. Your tool, one of your main tools in the short term as a developer. Okay, let me do this. Send funds is my folder. Okay, here I have this payment, this key. This is my signing key. As I said a few seconds ago, I need to sign all my transactions in the wallet, and of course in the Cardano CLI. I'm going to close this. Send funds, those are the commands to build a transaction. We are gonna for send goes send funds to other address. We have to build a transaction. Build a transaction. After that, sign a transaction, and next submit a transaction to the blockchain. And I submit transactions to the blockchain through my Cardano node, this node. This node, after I send the transaction that I sign and I build, the node will send that transaction to the blockchain. That's the reason why I can't close this window. Okay. The commands are these are standard commands to build a simple transaction. 3 steps: build a transaction, sign a transaction, submit a transaction. see for a moment. See this in my option transactions. Okay, this is. I can see in this area. I can see my total funds. Through a Cardano CLI, I have to check my funds to send the funds to the other address. I have to check what kind of funds I have at disposition in my address. Pay attention to this. You are gonna learn those commands and lines with the days. I need 3 data, 3 kind of data. One is my address. This is this address. This is the address corresponding to this wallet. I need also the receiver address, the receiver address, the address to which I want to send funds. I'm gonna take again this address, this wallet, and I'm gonna send some funds. Okay, this is my wallet. This, Sebastian Nontech, and this is the wallet of the other person, the wallet we recently created. TXIN, I need a TXIN. TXIN is simply a data that contains specific funds in my wallet. Remember, my wallet is this. This is my wallet. I'm the sender. This is my wallet. Okay. Don't worry about this. In the next weeks, you are gonna learn all of this. Okay. Okay. Of course. Address. Okay. Don't worry for this. Just in your daily life as a developer, you are gonna create some mechanics or some initial steps to start your day. Okay, take a look of this on this. This is a series of I need this TXIN. I need this data to put in this block of lines. A TX is simply this. I have in total. I have this kind of money, 10,000 text ADAs, near close to 10,000. Those 10,000 ADAs, test ADAs, are distributed in TXINs, in UTXOs. TXOs is simply parts of my total funds are simply parts. And if I add all these amounts, my total will be this amount. But this partition of transactions, the reason is I use this wallet for, or this address, I use this wallet for many transactions and many exercise and tests, many active financial activities I do many things with this wallet. So with all my I have made many transactions with this wallet. So I have many. I took all my total amount of money in this case, and in consequence of those transactions, the result is I divide that text in. Okay, I'm trying to make a good definition without a TX in. A TX in is a transaction, is the result of the transaction. When you have a transaction, I just use the TS hash to build transaction. That's right, TS hash and the TX in. Okay, TX in. TX in is an index. It's a index that make reference to the position of that transaction in the ledger. But as I said before, don't worry about this. When you have in the initial, for example, when you have this wallet, I'm gonna make this same command, but not with my address. But with this address, this. And as you can see here, oh, okay. Here again, you can see in this wallet, when I take this and I invoke the command, I request to the Cardano CLI, please show me the content of this address. The Cardano CLI request to the node that information, and the node delivers this information. And this information is the compilation of all the transactions that take place, all the UTXOs, or the transactions in general that take place in this wallet. And when I invoke other address, not this address here, that is corresponding to the wallet that we create recently. I can see that the list of transactions is null. If I take this address and I go to a Cardano scan, or one of those many I have a problem here. I have no transactions, but I have a transaction here. I have 10 ADAs here. Okay, the point is, ladies and gentlemen, I need back into our point of how to create, how to send funds through a simple transaction. I have a delay. I'm sure I have a delay here with the information that is invoked with through the node, because in this point I have to see this transaction, these 10 ADAs. But okay, that's no problem. Okay, I need one of those amounts. With one of those little TX little pieces of information that contains my funds. My funds are distributed in this, each one of these TX transactions. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna take this. Well, no, whatever. This, for example. I'm gonna copy this here. I'm gonna add this hash number, and then I'm gonna 999 and this hash 0, the number 0. Don't worry about that. You are gonna learn all of these things in the coming weeks. Okay, I have my 3 data variables. Those are variables. This TXIN is included here. This receiver address is included. Receiver address here. And this sender address is included here. That's simple. That's all. Okay. And copy this. Here. In this UTXO, I have close to 10 ADAs, test ADAs. Here it is 10 million, 9 million, 83, but in real, those are loveless. 1 ADA is equivalent to 1 million of loveless. So I have closely to 10 ADAs, 10 test ADAs. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Simply, just is simply a move of copy and paste. That's all. And when I invoke, for example, my TXIN. I have here my TXIN that I need. When I invoke, for example, what is the receiver address? Simply, I have here the address and so on. Next, I'm going to build the transaction. Copy. Again. Copy. and paste. That was a successful transaction because the CLI doesn't give any error and give me the estimate of the fees. Remember, all the transactions on the blockchain has a fee. This is the protocol. If you make some transaction on the blockchain, not a transaction around, for example, consult or request some information. That kind of requests are not. You don't need fee for request some information to the blockchain. You have to pay a fee if you want to modify the blockchain. For example, when you send funds to other others, that's the modification. That's the modification of the state of the blockchain. And when you want to modify the blockchain, you have to pay some fee. The next step is sign the transaction. Remember, here you just have to click a button in the Cardano CLI, and in your life as a developer, you have to write and push this block of commands. No errors, so the process is going well. And finally, you are gonna submit. In this point, you have your transaction signed through your signing key. This is your signing key. Okay, excellent. We are gonna submit our transaction to the blockchain. This is the node. The node is taking our transaction and make the thing. Okay, now I'm going to review my wallet. Remember, the transactions don't take effect instantly. All the transactions need to be verified for many other nodes like this, for many other machines or many other nodes in the blockchain, in the network. I have here one, but many other have to confirm that transaction. I'm going to UTXO. I sent 4 ADAs here, 4 ADAs, and my transaction, my TX was had 9 ADAs, so I should receive the change 5 ADAs in my address. Okay, I have here, I think, 9 minus 4 minus fees, approximately this. I'm gonna, there's no complication. I have here my address. Excuse me, sender address. This is my address. I go to Cardano scan. We have some other options around this scanning of transactions through the website, through the browser. This is my main address, and I have here my transactions. Okay. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Sebastian.
Yes. Yes.
I see that you haven't put the submit comment. You first call the build, and the second you call sign comment, and then the third you repeat the sign comment. Maybe you should submit the transaction.
Of course. Thank you. You have absolutely right.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you are absolutely right. Sorry. Thanks for that. I have here my PPBL. Cardano, excellent. Okay. Okay. At last, transaction successfully submitted. In here, I have here all my transactions. Okay. I have here my wallet. Pending transactions. Okay, 14. Transactions low. Okay, we have here. Excuse me. We have here 4 4 Teseidas, the 4 Teseidas that we sent in this point. And if I go to the Cardano scan, we can see here our transaction. A minute ago, I sent 4 ADAs. These are the 4 ADAs that I sent to the address. This is my change, 5.66, and you can note as in this list, in this list, I have here 5.66, 5.66 here though. So this is the change, my change, and the previous UTXO that I had here for 9 ADAs, it doesn't exist anymore because that UTXO, or that transaction of that transaction UTXO, that simply that this piece of my total money, that piece, it doesn't exist anymore because that was divided in my change 5 and in this other UTXO or transaction that I sent to that other address. So don't worry about what is UTXO for the moment. You don't have to understand what is UTXO. Simply see this like a division of your total amount in your wallet or in your address, your division in many parts, because it's inevitable that when you transact many times in the course of the existence of your address, you are going to make many transactions, and in the course of those transactions you are going to divide your total amount in many parts. That's a natural effect of make many transactions. The main point here is understand how is the experience of make a transaction through a wallet and make a transaction through a development tool, the web development tool as the Cardano CLI. Finally, when as a user, you can add some kind of data to your transaction. That's a common practice when you send money, for example, to pay something to other person or to other establishment or other organization, for example, to pay bills, to pay a debt or pay something, and you want to have some information that prove that you make that payment. That's very common as a user. Is common to make that adds that kind of information to your transactions. For example, if I take this wallet 14 ADAs and I send I don't know, 5 ADAs, for example, 5 ADAs receive address. I pay, for example, received with this. I'm gonna pay to this. I'm gonna send because For example, I owe an amount of money to that person. In this section, you have the option to add some message. For example, add transaction message. Entonces, add an optional message, comment memo to the transaction. Payment for the rent, for example. Okay. Next. Funds for test areas. For test areas are 4 million rupees. Don't forget that. Okay, next. Spending password. And my spending password is this. I have to change some Spanish language in this. Okay, and sign. And I send this transaction with a kind of message that is a proof that I made that payment for a specific reason or situation. And when I checked my history and transactions, 2 transactions pending. Okay, see this. This is the transaction. And we have here the metadata or the message that I want to add to my payment. And if I see this in the other wallet, in the wallet of the receiver, I can see these transactions, and in effect, I have this transaction. Payment for the rent. And as a user, you can do this in this way. It's very simple. But as a developer, is different. It's different, but the goal is the same. You want to add some message, some metadata to your transaction. And imagine that you just want to, you don't want to make it's not necessary to send money to the transaction. Imagine, for example, you just want to have in the blockchain some kind of information, an information that endures in the blockchain forever. You want in the blockchain some kind of information forever. That's the main purpose. You don't need, it's not necessary, it's not about send funds only. It's just also about secure information in the blockchain, some kind of information. And you do that through the Cardano CLI in this way. Also is really the process, the mechanics are the same. You have a kind of blocks of commands. You have blocks of commands, and you execute those blocks of commands in your Cardano CLI. I have here I have here my commands, and the process is the same. You take, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. And when you, with the time, with the practice and experience, you are going to take all of these commands and put it in a script. And the execution of that script will be more quick and more efficient in time. This is the process step by step. So as in the previous cases, you need some information. You need, again, a TXIN not only for the funds that you want to send, funds also for the fee. You have to pay the fee. When you send, for example, an NFT, you need funds not only for the fee, you need funds for add some kind of is when you send NFTs through the to the blockchain, you need a kind of add some kind of funds, a minimum amount of funds to the NFT. Oh, you are gonna see this in the next weeks. Okay, in this case, you need a TXIN again. Those are my in this transaction I'm not gonna send I'm not gonna send money. My intention is just put a message in the blockchain. So, but there is no, that is not free I have to pay a fee. So I'm going to select the fees minimum. The fee is 0.18 something like that, a minimum amount. Depends of the kind of message I want to add to my transaction. I'm going to take this. With that TXIN 2. Hash 2. Okay, sender address. I'm the sender, so this is I recognize my address for this termination. Metadata, okay, I prepared previously my folder. Question, what inside the metadata JSON? Excellent. What kind of information can we send on it? Okay, we can send any kind of information. Text, we have, for example, I can send, for example, I have here for example, this is an example of this. This is an example of metadata. They pay in this transaction. This is a transaction. All is a transaction. All in Cardano blockchain is a transaction. So they don't send any funds, any kind of funds. Just pay the fee for send this message. This was an invitation to a workshop about metadata, and this person sent this transaction to this through this metadata. So it's similar to take this all this message and add it to section. It's the same, but you do this through a metadata.json file. Like the same. And as a developer, you have to be conscious that the characteristics of your message, because if your message is too rich, it's a large message with characteristics of text and strings and some kind of, no, depends. For example, we have examples in which a whole batch of wines for a company that make wine. They can put the data of a whole batch of wines in a metadata file. But it depends. But you want to what is metadata? I see that you are in metadata. That's correct. Because at the end, this message is a metadata point, is a file. That name metadata.json is just a name, is not a requirement that the name be exactly that. But basically, this is just a file. This is a file at the end. Okay, the question is how we can send a message. We can attach a message to our transaction. Okay, here I have my metadata.json and other file name protocol.json. That is a compilation of the Ouroboros protocol. You are gonna understand all of this in the next weeks. Okay, we can see, for example, what contains our metadata.json. Okay, my message, the message that I want to add to my transaction is very simple. This is the cohort of new developers on Cardano. Is the same thing as if I take this message and put here. It's the same. It's the same as a user. This is the experience. As a user, you only have to write some lines, and that's all. But as a developer, you have to add that message in a file. This is the key. The identification of that message is a key and a message, and that key corresponds to this message. And of course, you can edit and add your own message in your metadata.json. This is a simple file. So I have here I have my TXIN for the payment of the fee. I have my address. I have a key, the path to my metadata.json. The path is the place of my file. And finally, I need the sender key. So my signing key. Or the signing key corresponding to this address. This is my sender key, my signing key. Is located in this place through this path. So I have the information that I need. I'm just copy and paste. Okay, so if I invoke, for example, I invoke this, I obtain the path to my metadata JSON file, or the path to the file that contains the message that I want to add to my transaction, or the message I want to add permanently in the blockchain. Any document or key, 2000 is arbitrary name. The requirement is you that this 2000 has to make an integer, only integer. You can't add strings or characters. This is the key. The 2000 should be only an integer. Should be only an integer. And this message, the message can be a mix of strings, characters, and numbers, strings. Any documentation sobre key, why we need. So don't matter. Yeah, use no matter. You put that string, that number, based on your necessities. Sorry for my little dog. Okay, yes. Okay. Copy paste also. So first step, build the transaction again. Build the transaction, sign the transaction, and submit the transaction. It's a pattern in general. Copy, and now this txin, my address, my metadata JSON, my protocol, that's the compilation of the Ouroboros protocol, and that deliver a file, the file of the transaction. Copy. Here. Okay. Well, non-AIDAs are unbalanced. Okay. Okay. Sorry, my error. Here I select a UTXO that includes other things, not only AIDAs. I select, should I include, I select this, I have in this address, I have multiple types of TX transactions or UTXOs. This, for example, this UTXO includes some tokens. This is a token, includes AIDAs, test AIDAs, and tokens. This, for example, includes, this here includes AIDAs and some other tokens. So I have to, for this transaction, I have to use a transaction with only AIDAs, like this. like this. Copy. Hash. Sorry. 333. 3. Hash 3. Okay. And again. Okay. Clear. And again. Copy. And paste. Excellent. In this case, we obtain a successful building transaction because doesn't deliver any error, and it informed me about the amount of a fee that I have to pay for this transaction. Next, I'm gonna copy this to sign the transaction. Copy and paste. Okay, sign. My transaction is signed. And finally, I'm gonna submit. So it doesn't matter. Could you explain to me? Protocol JSON. Okay, it's gonna before we submit the transaction. No, I'm gonna submit the transaction. I'm gonna submit the transaction, and that's all. Transaction successful. The blockchain. The blockchain is adding my transaction to a thing called the mempool. It's a huge bunch of transactions that are it's a place in which all the transactions are adding to the blockchain. It's a pool, a place full of transactions. In some point, in this moment, I'm waiting for my transaction be removed from that pool, that mempool. In the next weeks, we are going to learn more about what is the mempool. But we are waiting for the remove of my TX, my transaction to this mempool. It's like to pick my transaction for all the bunch of transactions and select it and remove from that pool. It's taking a while. It's taking a while. Trace, okay. Before we have added trace, mempool, add text. In this case, we have trace, mempool, remove text. That means my transaction was adding to the blockchain. I can confirm that in my Cardano in the Cardano scan. This is the this is I'm gonna take my address. Here. Okay, this is my address. This is the Cardano scan. Control C, Control B. Okay, my transactions 3 minutes ago. I have this transaction. In this transaction, I watch this. I take my 5 ADAs to pay the fee, and the blockchain send me the change. The change is my 5 ADAs minus the fee, because my intention was not send funds. My intention was only send a message. Send a message for the eternity on the blockchain about the incredible cohort of the Easter Town Hall. And that will keep in the blockchain forever. That was my intention. Put that message in the blockchain forever. And that's the way in which a developer in Cardano make that manage the issue of put messages in the transactions. And imagine the implications, for example, for a store, for example, for a store that sent a store that transact through a Cardano blockchain and has a constant delivery of products. Use this kind of property. The stores, for example, can add what kind of products they are delivered to the clients. And many other applications and identity or traceability or many other properties, many other use case that in which we can use this kind of property. Respect to the okay, and that is the difference between you made that thing in the through this when you send a transaction and you add a message. That's the user's way, and this is the Cardano developer way, using this block of commands and taking this information. So finally, protocol.json. Okay, in my after I is the label, the metadata, I can take it. No, as when from the Cardano CLI, you can decide what key you put in your message. In the Cardano, in the wallets in general, you don't have that. As a user, you don't have that advantage. The wallet software put that key, decide that key, because the important thing for the wallet is send the message, is add the message to the transaction. Okay, protocol.json. After I execute the block, all this block of commands, you obtain these files, because in this part, for example, when you build your transaction, this block of lines deliver this TX metadata. The name is arbitrary. You can select, you can put the name you want. Include the point dash. The extension is arbitrary. This row is arbitrary. The name in total is arbitrary. But at the end, you obtain this file after you execute the signing of transaction. You obtain this file. That is the same file. This is the same file. Where do you get the protocol? Okay, protocol JSON. Cat. You obtain the protocol.json from the blockchain in the following way. Sorry. This is the protocol JSON. Protocol JSON is a compendium of instructions that defines the protocol in which all the Cardano blockchain functions. For example, we have here concepts around the maximum TX size, for example, maximum value size, we have here all kinds of instructions. With an equals into all kinds of instructions that describe how the protocol functions when we build and submit transactions to the blockchain. You can see in more detail this file. Information about fees, information about the staking, information, many other information. Max value size, max TX size, max TX execution units in terms of memory, in terms of steps, many other. But in general, this a compiler of instructions. You get it from base and use Alonso Genesis X. That's the point. And how you can obtain that protocol.json? You can obtain it through the Cardano CLI. Again, there is a line, there is a command for that task. Cardano CLI, you make a query. You make a query to the blockchain. Query the protocol. Okay. You Cardano CLI. You make a query to the blockchain. Query about the protocol parameters. I don't remember the other when in this moment I don't remember the other parts of this command, but I can make I can I can get those other parts when you have you gave enter, and in this part the Cardano CLI is a very cool instrument, a very cool tool, because when you don't remember some kind of commands, the Cardano CLI can help with that. For example, I don't remember, I didn't remember, for example, I had the testnet magic, and I had to add a file. Of course, the protocol that a kind of a form of, I need a file of this process. I need a file, and that file is the protocol.json. And protocol.json is just a name. You can name it whatever you want, in the way you want. But for practices you name it protocol.json. So I have here Cardano CLI query protocol parameters, testnet magic. Testnet magic is you are gonna learn that in the next weeks when you start to play with your own node and your own Cardano CLI. Okay, and I need a file. And I don't need repeat these lines. Out file. Sorry, out file. Sorry. Here, out file. Protocol do.json, because at the end it's a JSON file. Huh? As you see, it's a JSON file. ls, and we have here the protocol do.json, and you need that protocol.json to execute this block. If you want to submit transactions, you need that protocol.json, and that's the way in which you obtain the file. Okay, that's thanks for listening today. It's going to listen excellent. I'm happy for that. Okay, for conclusion, that's the difference between add metadata to the transactions through our wallet and yes, you have questions. We have okay, that's the difference between add metadata through our wallets and add metadata through our Cardano CLI as a developers. Okay, my recommendations. We will see you in 2 weeks, but 2 weeks is too much time. So we need to do something meanwhile. And the main task in the next 2 weeks will be swim this space of this body of water between our outside experiences, our experiences as users, and our experiences as a developers. We need if we want to work with the blockchain, we need to install our node in our local machine, and we need to install some other tools as the Cardano CLI, as the Nix, and other tools. It seems a complicated task, but it's not. I made that journey, and with the hours and with the days and with the pass of the days, that labor will be more. It was more manageable. So, ladies and gentlemen, we need to configure our work environment. So, what we are gonna do? Where is my session? Okay, recommendations. Main recommendation, because it's at the end it's only a recommendation. But if you want to, if you want to make a living as developer, you have to make these kind of things. But it's your decision at the end. This the configuration of the environment is the one of the main tasks. Once you have your node and all your tools, development tools in your local machine, you can start to play with all those tools and with all the material of all the commands and all the lines. And it's in that playground that you start to understand too many concepts and too many things about how is built on top of Cardano. So the main recommendation of the main assignment is go to the Plutus PBL. I hope you are already enrolled in the Plutus PBL. So go to the course, and those are the modules of the PBL. You can start this. This is the sweet part, introductions, must getting started. But our main job for the next 2 weeks is in this module. The module 101, prepare a Plutus development environment. Here we have here some of our Lucas is one of our tutors. Sound and test. Okay, you are right, Andreas. You are right. But don't worry. The thing is, before all this thing of the testnet mini chaos, all we made James made the guys of Gimbalabs made all the course before this testnet. But you can request our help if you need to make some actualizations. If you go to the Gimbalabs Discord, this is Discord. In that Discord, you can find the update information about other things in the period. You are right, Andreas, and there are information in relation to the pre-testnet, this pre-testnet issue, but in the Gimbalabs Discord, we have here the section assigned to the Plutus PBL, and we have here students chat. The chat of the students. And we have here all the information about about the pre and post testnet, the testnet and the current era of the pre-production test. You can find here many information about many other topics, and you can find in also the main your main tool in this in this learning process is the tutors of Gimbalabs. And no, the main tool is your own effort and your own work. But you have to know that you are not alone in this. in this section in the Gimbalabs Discord and in this section Plutus PPBL, you can find many information about what you are doing in this moment. For example, in your environment configuration task. But you have encountered help for many other topics in the course of the PPBL. But this section is the section that we are working in the next weeks. So we have the next session in 2 weeks, but from this moment of tomorrow or the next days, you have to start to implement, to configure your environment. So, free recommendation, Gimbalabs, PPBL, go to Gimbalabs, go to the PPBL and start to implement your start to configure your environment. If you need help, go to the Discord of Gimbalabs and request help. We are here to help you. And we have here some this I'm gonna share this document. My colleague Lucas, he made some very cool and instructive classes, and I recommend it. Okay, oh, sorry. Okay, for the moment, that's all. Okay, that's all for the moment. And remember, if you need help, simply enter to the Discord of Gimbalabs Discord, and we are in the Discord to help you. And that's all.
Pardon, Sebastian. Gorga has a question in the chat. He's having some trouble.
Okay, I'm having trouble using Nix because I keep having connection. I'm out when I install Nix, even though I'm using and there is nothing because. Okay, you go to the Gimbalabs Discord. Share with us some images and some information, some specific information about what's the punctual error, and we can make something about it. So take some screenshots and paste some code error of the errors, and we can do something about it. Don't worry. You are not the first, and you are not the last having some troubles with this. But the idea is tackling the problems, the most complicated, the most complicated part of the process. And once we get that part, we can start to learn some very fun things in general.
Awesome, okay. Great session, Sebastian.
No, thanks.
Really appreciate everyone's enthusiasm. Arman, thank you for coming. See you in 2 weeks. And to everyone else, please remember the Discord chat of Gimbalabs is open. It's wide open. I go there from time to time, and I always see people helping each other out. So feel free to express all your concerns there. And as Sebastian said, there will always be someone to help you. Again, thank you all for your enthusiasm. Thank you, Sebastian, for your time. I really appreciate everyone's effort to join this Gimbalabs Train the Trainers program. Have a great weekend and stay safe. Would you have any closing notes, Sebastian?
No, thanks for having me here. thanks. I appreciate being a part of your learning experience, and let's do it. Let's do some things.
Awesome. Awesome. Bye bye, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.
See you.